Tēnā koutou and welcome to our first Māori in Business webinar. I'm so excited to welcome you all along to our first webinar in a range of series that will be coming up. This first one is about inspiring each other for a better future. My name is Melissa Frick and I'm your Business Training Manager, and I was born and raised in the Waitakere Ranges here in the beautiful greenery. Today, it'll be a 1-hour webinar and you will be recorded. For anyone that has missed it, can catch up in a recording later on our website. We will have a Q&A section with all of our speakers at the end of today's session. So please, if you think of a question, you can drop it in the chat box. I'm just going to go through a quick disclaimer with you on the next slide. So the information is of a general information. If you do need any personalised advice at the end in the survey, where we'd love your feedback, you can also request an A to Z review to sit down with one of our team here at ANZ. Today, we are using Zoom as our platform to take you through in the webinar. You all have been auto muted, but you are available to chat with us in the chat box or raise your hands. And as I mentioned, we will have an opportunity for question and answers at the end. But if you do think of them as our speakers are talking, drop them in the chat box and we can go through there. And we would appreciate your feedback in the survey, as I've mentioned. It is with my great pleasure at this point, I introduce Karleen Everitt, our Head of Te Ao Māori Strategy here at the ANZ. Thank you.
Tā kria rangi, tā kria nuku, tā kria tau tia kia puawai ki te ao te kare aroto i. Ia ku rauranga tirama tēnā rako te katoa. Nau mai, whakatau mai rā, ki tēnei anō o tā tātou nei kaupapa kia puawai te Pākihi. Ka tira ki te miha tū kia rātou koronga ti ki te karango iho. O te rano o tō tātou Papa Moana Jackson, me tōna tuahine whaia June, a rātou hoki wairua hoki wairua e. Rātou kia rātou tātou ngā kanohi o rata kia tātou, tēnā no tātou katoa. He mihi tēnei anō ki te mihi atu ki tēnei o tō tātou nei kai kōrero tuatahi nā ko Blanche. He moka puna ia mai a muri whenua mai a te huku. He tino kōnore tēnei ko ia tā mātou nei o te pēke nui ki te mihi atu kia ia na ko ia te kai kōrero tuatahi. I roto i tērā kia koutou, i roto i te Pāki, i te ao nei, he mihi kauane kia koutou, nau mai, hara mai, whakatau mai rā, ki tēnei kaupapa o te pēke nui o te ANZ, kia pūai te Pākihi. Just a huge thank you all for everyone for coming along and having a bit of a listen to our first kai kōrero in this kaupapa of Kia Pūwai Te Pākihi. We're really honoured to have Blanche Morrogh here. She's a mokapuna o muri whenua of Te Hiku Pika. It's a real honour, honore nui rawa atu kia, ki te mihi atu kia koe tuku tuakana. I roto i tēnā, tātou, you're going to hear some pretty cool kōrero this afternoon. Enjoy the kōrero, and we look forward to your feedback for the kōrero, the kaupapa today. With that, handing it over to you, Blanche. Te tuakana no mai, whakatau mai rā. Over to you, Blanche.
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa, ko Blanche Morrogh toku ingoa, ko Leah Morrogh taku tāne, toku rua a māua tamariki, kiwa rāpine ko Hana Glena Morrogh. No whangapē rawa ko te hapua o kutupuna, kei te noho au ki ahipara. I firstly thank you to each and every one of you that have signed in today. I truly appreciate you all taking the time out of your busy schedules to listen in. Thank you to the team at ANZ for your manaki and your aroha leading up to this session. Being the first session, I had a lot of nerves, so thank you. Karleen, what a beautiful welcome. Thank you so much for the invitation to share today. I truly find it inspiring and much needed in today's environment that more and more people want to share our stories, but not only the stories like ours of Kai Ora, but stories of how Māori businesses of all sizes and ranges can participate and benefit environmentally, economically, and sustainably from a land to brand strategy such as Kai Ora's. So without any further ado, for those who don't know Kai Ora, we love to share the gift of Mānuka with the world. We Are a whānau-led business founded by the very people that you see in front of you. And whilst our journeys have changed over the years since we've started, I always acknowledge my whānau and the support that they give and have given and continue to give as we continue to prosper and grow in the international market. So here at Kai Ora, we draw on the rich history of our Indigenous solutions from our ancestors and make them accessible to the world. Kai Ora is a leading Indigenous business, Māori-owned business, operating in the remote north of Aotearoa, New Zealand since 2009. Kai Ora is renowned all over the world for our innovative products and utilising natural healing properties found within our native ngahere. We believe that innovation and global market ownership will enable Māori to create meaningful change, not only for our whenua, but also for our whānau. Just a quick snapshot of what the last 15 years, well actually 36 years has looked like. Our family legacy of entrepreneurship and guardianship begins with our grandmother in 1986 as she begins her journey to look after te ao Māori and our taonga species and launch what I remember as a whānau, going into a space of entrepreneurship and being together on the land with our whānau. In 2005, we were blessed to be introduced to the honey industry, and not too long later, Kai Ora Honey is born. Of family essence and experience, kai meaning food and ora meaning health, life and well-being. And of Māori heritage, we soon learn that our hauora is really important. Fast forward a few years, there's a lot of trials and tribulations as we find our feet on the global stage and understand where we are positioned and where our point of difference is. Kai Ora commences our value add and Indigenous innovation journey. We came to a point where we believed that we were more than just honey in a jar, that our Māori brand story, that our cultural story, that the story that our ancestors have passed down to us through whakapapa was important, and for us to continue to thrive in an industry that was going up and down, it seemed like the logical choice for us to take. In 2019, we were blessed and amazed after some serious hard work. We launched our skincare range, Hana Botanicals, and entered into the EU and Japan markets. Fast forward again to the 2020, the year that everyone will never forget. The global health crisis hits Aotearoa, and we respond to a lack of hand sanitizer in our area by developing something again, by understanding R&D from our native ngahere, and originally launched as Pure San, but in 2021, Pure San was rebranded to Nuka Clean to enter into the US market. So that's a quick history about us. I always love this photo of myself and my two brothers on a journey. At the beginning of our journey of beekeeping, this photo was taken in Kapawairoa. Big smiles as our grandmother Sana and our father Rapine encourages us along this journey and inspires us to continue following what has obviously become a positive one. So just a quick snapshot of what our products look like. We've got a Mānuka honey range that's authentically Māori-led and operated, globally recognised, and has a Māori-owned land-to-brand strategy. Our Hana skincare is named after our grandmother Hana, which in te reo means to radiate and glow. But over the years, as we had connected deeply with our friends and business partners in Japan, Hana is also a beautiful flower in Japan. So we learnt to create a beautiful marriage hand in hand between our market that was growing and also pay homage back to our founding foundation, our grandmother, our beautiful grandmother, our guiding light, Nana Sana, but also Hana. And we as I mentioned in 2020, we did some quick R&D and we released Mānuka Clean. So we're really proud to be able to distribute this throughout the US and to demonstrate that cultural history can also meet brand recognition that allows us to, again, create an economic, a circular economic, environmental program in rural areas like this in Te Huku. So I'm really proud to demonstrate those with you. Some of the key lessons that we've experienced over the last 15 years is to know our why, intimately, truly, why we are in business and what makes us strive to take the next step and to keep us motivated. So family, money, legacy, no matter what your why is, it was really important to us to know that intimately. And it makes it easier to tell the story of what makes us different, where our competitive advantage is in the global market and how we could measure our success along our journey. So knowing our why. Remaining agile has been a hard but reality over the last couple of years, obviously with COVID, but we've also had industry changes from a government level that dictates the way that we were exporting around the world. So remaining agile was really important to us. It is one of the reasons why we've managed to stay ahead of market trends. So innovation, partnerships have been really important, and the ability to do pivots as you need in a quick way as market trends are changing. It was always important that we were able to understand where our market value was changing also across the trends. So it was also important for us to focus on that over that time. And obviously with so much different information coming at you from all over the rohe, we must stay strong and say no when it doesn't align, to stay focused on the journey that you are on or have chosen to be on. So I'm a great example of how burnout can happen, how you can have too many fingers in one pie, and sometimes you can get spread really thin. And with young whānau, tamariki, with your friends and family around, sometimes you really have to focus so that all of those other things within our lives don't get negatively impacted as well. Export, it's what we live and breathe. One of the things that I also always encourage people to do is to understand where your support networks come from. So for us here at Kai Ora, NZTE has been an amazing support channel. They have been able to help us understand our market channels and allow us to dive deeper to ensure that we're instilling Te Tiriti values into our business. So do you know your customer? Where does the channel that you're wanting to enter into start and end? What is your market size and in population and in value? That's really important to know where you're going to target your audience and how you are going to convert that audience into a financial conversion so that you can stay in business. And how do you get your product and service to market? So as we know, since 2020, there's been disruptions across many supply chains, delays, demands across different sectors, that it is really important that we understand what that supply chain and the service to that market looks like. So if that's any advice 15 years into 15 minutes, that is something that I always encourage people to look at first when they're looking to export. And last but not least, to not sweat the small stuff. Accounting, marketing, campaigns can be oh so overwhelming. I encourage you to leave this to the gurus to create a space for development, so that you can create a space for development for other staff as well in the space, but also they know what they're doing. They've spent their lives up until this point to learn how to support you better, to make your business better. So leave it to the gurus, the ones who know what they're doing, and to focus on what you do best. we know that what we do best is to position a Māori brand authentically, indigenously in a global stage that allows us to work with our partners in a way that enhances our relationships, that inspires not only ourselves but also them to work together to build what we love to see as the Indigenous economy. And to have a clear vision and intention of what you want for your business helps these gurus to guide their creative and collective flow. So it doesn't always mean that it falls on your shoulders, although sometimes if you're like me, it's hard to let go of the reins. Like people peel your fingers off. But it's if there's anything to learn by the amount of times that I have burnt out, definitely leave it to the gurus. And it is important, not whilst you're handing over these important parts of your business, it's also important not to drop these, not to forget about them once you hand them over, to always check in, to always ensure yourself that you are happy with the performance, but to also not micromanage if you can avoid it. So once again, it's been a power 15 minutes to give some highlights over the last 15 years of our journey. Please put your questions into the chat box around where we're going to go next or what we may do into the future. But thank you all for joining, and I've loved sharing our story with you all.
Kia ora, Blanche. Ka mautuihi. What an amazing, awesome, inspiring journey that you shared with us. You know, from your humble roots in the far north to the global stage. You know, you've shown us what's possible if you've got the passion that you do and you're willing to do the hard work that you've done. You can kind of achieve massive things. So well done. When I listen to your story, you know, like so many other Māori in business, it's clear that whakapapa and whānau have played a critical role in kind of seeing you get to where you are now. I really love the clarity you have around your purpose. You talk about your why, and that really shines through. I really like how well you understand, I guess, your products, your markets, your customers, and all that real nitty-gritty stuff, because it demonstrates, again, the hard work you've done to understand your business and how to build it into the success that it's become. So you've offered some wonderful insights for us to take away. Particularly around innovation, agility, but also resilience, you know, and that's really important in these tough times that we're going through. So thank you so much again, Blanche. It's an awesome story. Thank you for sharing it. Ngā mihi nui ki a koe. If you have questions for Blanche, as we said, put those in the chat. I can see a couple are building up already. We do want to give Blanche just an opportunity to catch her breath, and then we'll pick up those questions as soon as we can. In this next short section, though, is about being match fit. I think that we're at a really interesting time in the business cycle. We're still kind of muddling our way through COVID. A lot of businesses, sadly, have been impacted, and there is still uncertainty ahead of us. But when I flip that around and think about the positive side of it, we know that out of disruption, opportunities do emerge. And so it's as good a time as ever, I think, to be reflecting on our business and ensuring that we are match fit and we are ready to capitalize on opportunities when they do arise. So to help shine a perspective on this, my colleague Ben Harawira and I were keen to share some of the learnings and tips that we've collected along our way across the last 10 years working with Māori businesses. So to begin, just some background on us. Ko David Harrison tōku ingoa, ko Ngāti Pākehā, ko Ngāti Tonga o Kuiwi, nō Rotorua ahau, engare ko Takapuna, Taku Kāinga e Nāianei, ko ANZ mahi ana ahau. Ben, kia koe.
Tēnā koutou, ko Ben Harawira tōku ingoa, ko Te Apauri, ko Ngāpui o Kuiwi, e nō ana ahau ki Tāmaki Makaurau. Kia ora. I've been in the organisation for about 16 years. Last 8 years has been dealing in ANZ business with a bit of a bias towards Māori business. And I think what I understand around Māori business is it's not just about pūtea, just a tautoko what Blanche and David had said already. It's more about whakapapa, whanaunga, kaitiakitanga. And that's why I'm quite passionate about dealing with Māori business. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thanks, Ben. We've both spent the last decade supporting Māori businesses, and we've had that fortunate position to watch the Māori economy grow, and it's now estimated to be close to $70 billion in assets and contributing about 8% towards the New Zealand's GDP. So that's a significant contribution. Here we've got a very simplistic view of the Māori economy and the different groups that it's comprised of. And when I look at this diagram and the different groups, I think the iwi treaty settlement entities tend to get talked about a lot, but they are, I guess, in no way the biggest part, and nor are the tens of thousands of Māori land-owning entities. And while these kind of collectively owned groups are super important, the biggest part of the Māori economy is actually Māori in business, those that are employing people, those that are self-employed. And that's, I guess, kind of many of you who are on this webinar. Blanche is a fantastic example of what we're talking about. And we call this group Māori in business. And I think of it as you, I guess, as being the real engine room of the Māori economy. As well as these three kind of broad groups, there's also a group out to the side that are supporting the Māori economy. And these, we'll touch on these as we kind of go through, but banks are part of this important group. And I think we're very fortunate that we get to see and interact with lots of businesses. So Ben and I wanted to share some of the common things that we see successful Māori businesses doing. So what does good look like? Ben and I put our heads together, and on this next slide, just tried to summarize, I guess, the three common themes that we see successful Māori businesses doing. First of all, having a clear plan. It sounds kind of simple, but really it requires quite a bit of discipline and effort to create and maintain this plan over time. The second thing we see is that, successful businesses surround themselves with a winning team. And there's lots of places that you can go to for help, and we'll touch on some of those. And the third thing really is they're great communicators. Good businesses are able to keep not only their team, but also their wider whānau of stakeholders up to date. So these are the sort of three simple things. We're now just going to sort of dip into each of those to try and shine a bit more light. So Ben, you've helped lots of Māori businesses in your time at ANZ. You've seen lots of business plans. What does a good one look like, mate? What do you expect to see in one?
Thanks, David. I think Blanche really kind of gave a good analogy towards it by first starting with the why. The plan is really just the how and the when, your competitive advantage and whatnot. Business plans that I've seen in the past have ranged from your standard business plan template on the ANZ website to forecasts that are given by your accountant, through to just brainstorming onto a whiteboard. I think for us to be able to enable customers to achieve their take or their why, we need to see their thoughts written down in some way, which shows how they want to look at moving their business forward. How they would grow their business, how they would keep their customers, grow their customers, pay their suppliers, and pay us if there was a loan. Things we love to see in a business plan, it's pretty simple. And I think all of us as Māori kind of understand that. Ko wai koe, who are you? On top of that, what do you want to do? What is your strategy? How are you going to earn income to pay yourself, your staff, your suppliers, and us? The key thing here, main kaupapa, is that it should be realistic. An example of a good plan that I've seen from a customer is one that I dealt with a few years ago. He was the manager of a business, and the owner of that business was looking to retire. He wanted to make his take about employing his whānau. And so he approached the bank to ask for funding to take over that business. His plan talked about who he was and what he wanted to do. It included an understanding of the key risks of the business that he was taking over. One of those big risks was potential loss of customers. So on top of his plan, he brought in references from those customers that he was looking at taking over. And those references were saying that we know this project manager, we know he does good mahi for us, and we'll continue to tautoko him when he takes over this new business in the future. On top of that, he overlaid it with financial forecasts. So this was given from his accountants, using the business's last few years worth of financials to be able to project forward. And there were some assumptions around customer retention in that as well. What I really liked about it is how he understood his business, he understood the customers, and he clearly demonstrated that in his plan. He also had a good understanding of those risks to his business and what he was going to do to mitigate those risks. This gave us confidence that he could move the business forward after the existing business owner left. In the end, we ended up funding him. He had to put in a little bit of hutea himself. He was able to take over that business, employ his whānau, and carry on with the take that he wanted to achieve.
Kia ora, Ben. For those who are wanting to know more about that business planning process, we do have another webinar specifically on this, and that'll be coming up in early May, and we'll circulate the invite to that following this webinar. Okay, Ben, there is a fair bit for owners to get their heads around in terms of, not only building but executing their plans. So where can they go for help? Can you give us some customer examples of where people have done this well?
I think Blanche's experiences here and her key lessons have helped her and Kai Ora Honey continue to grow. She gave an example of leaving marketing and accounting to the gurus so that she can focus on what she does best in growing her business. Another part that she talked about was engaging NZTE for her international aspirations. I guess the main kaupapa here is your team, for want of a better word, is not necessarily your internal team. It's not your business partners. It's not your employees. It's other third parties. Example, tuatahi, it's your lawyer. So like my previous example that I used, he had to engage a lawyer to change employee contracts for his staff so that they would be assigned to him as the owner of the business. He also had to sign a sale and purchase agreement to take on all of the kit that was in the business that he was taking over. An example, tuarua, is if you have a brand, it's outsourcing that marketing kaupapa to somebody else so that they can do the mahi to grow your brand. Blanche's example of having somebody doing social media is a good example of it. Toru, an accountant, they're probably one of the most integral parts, because no matter whether you're starting out as a sole trader and needing to pay for your GST and your provisional tax, they're also ones that can help you with providing a looking forward cash flow. Again, Blanche left the accounting with the guru to help her keep going forward. The key here is that these experts are outside the business and have experience themselves in identifying individual risks for your business. These might be risks that you might not have thought of yourself. Moreover, the more independent they are, the better they will be able to challenge your thinking with your business and better enable you to succeed. Blanche's story around NZT helping understand overseas markets and being a partner is a great example of that. Lastly, your bank. We're a partner to help with your funding your growth by way of payments, international trade, or asset purchases.
Kia ora, Ben. Yeah, there's that whole raft of professionals you've talked about. There's also another group that I think are really important in terms of support networks, and that's organisations like Te Punu Kokiri, Amotai, Potama Trust, Māori Women Development Incorporation, and a whole raft of regional Māori business networks like Whāriki in Auckland, Te Awe in Wellington, for example. And I think this sort of whole group offers a massive network that are tautoking Māori businesses across the board. And as Ben just mentioned, banks too, we think ourselves are another important group that are supporting Māori businesses. And so I just wanted to highlight, I guess, the 3 areas where we think we can offer some help if you're starting up or you're underway. And firstly, that's, we offer a whole lot of free information and insights, tools. This webinar as an example. We've got more webinars to come on business planning and cash flow forecasting. And if you have other topics that you'd like covered, please put those in the chat and we can look to build, a resource or webinar around that. But really, I guess I want to encourage you to make use of these resources because they are free and they can help you start, run, or move your business forward. The second key area, I guess, is around just that basic day-to-day banking stuff, which we all expect. Having good functional day-to-day banking services is a critical part of running your business, and I do encourage you to see value in investing time with your bank in order to get set up properly. And then the third big area that I guess we can help is around access to finance, and this isn't for everyone. But extra finance or capital can help you accelerate your growth or take your business to the next level. So if you are thinking about this and approaching the bank, the best thing to do is be prepared, have your plan, and in simple terms, there's 2 questions that we're looking for answers to, and that is, what do you want the money for in terms of the purpose, what you'll spend it on, etc. And the second question is, how will you pay it back? And how will you pay it back if things don't go to plan? If you can answer those 2 questions and you can articulate those well, then really you're kind of most of the way there. That's a bit of a snapshot then of, I guess, the areas where we think we can help. Just to our kind of third point, back to you, Ben. I'm a business owner. I've got my plan. I've got my team around me. I might have agreed to borrow some money from the bank. What happens if I'm going along and things don't go to plan? You're on mute, mate.
Right. Go e whakamā e wha. Just don't be embarrassed. Tell us early. And that kaupapa just extends to everything with regards to your team. Tell your team early if something is perceived to go wrong. It gives everyone enough time to be able to look at trying to fix that and adapt to it. And a great example of that is a client of ours who had 3 owners in a business, and they each had their own key account relationships. One of the owners decided they wanted to pursue different career opportunities, and so they were looking at planning on leaving the business. This meant some of those key clients were going to be put at risk. What that would mean for the business, potentially lost income streams in the future. Firstly, the business partner talked to their other owners. They considered, like the original example, that there was a risk of losing these key accounts, key clients. And so it was a risk that they needed to look at managing. They engaged with ourselves, and they engaged with lawyers, and they engaged with accountants. With regards to lawyers and accountants, they engaged with lawyers to understand how the change of ownership would work. With the accountants, they tried to understand how the cash flow was going to look going forward. And then from us, they needed to understand how we would change their banking situation. Turned out that this business owner who was leaving was always the one that would press the button to pay the bills. So we needed to look at educating the other business owners to make sure that they could press that button to pay the bills as well. The main kaupapa here is because we and other parts of the team knew that they were going to start thinking of this change, we could then start to plan ways to support them through this. And one of the ways we did that was to structure their bank accounts and facilities in a way that made it easier for them to look at continuing the business going forward. When the time came, we were ready to put in place the new banking setup to meet theirs and the bank's requirements. The transition went smoothly and all the customer relationships were maintained. No later, plans change. The earlier your team around you know the plan will change, the better that you and the rest of your team can adapt to the situation and provide a solid pathway forward. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Ben. Okay, let's recap. Ben and I guess, have just tried to convey 3 simple messages that hopefully they can offer some insight to you. The first is around having a clear plan. A top World War II Army General, Dwight Eisenhower, once said, "Plans are useless, but planning is essential." And I often reflect on this because I think it's all that hard work that we do during the planning process that means that when things don't go to plan, we're able to successfully adapt or pivot or replan. And Blanche showed some great examples of her doing this. The second thing is surrounding yourself with a winning team. So, find those people who you trust, who will be honest with you, who have the skills that you don't, who can help you set your goals and achieve them. And Ben's just given us a couple of good examples there. And then finally, the third point was keep up that open, clear communication with your team and also with your key stakeholders, whether that be your key suppliers, your key customers, your advisor, or your bank. At the end of the day, I guess no one likes surprises. So we hope that's been of help. We're happy to take questions too, but we'll go back to Mal and hopefully we can hear some more from Blanche. So kia ora tātou.
Thank you so much. Can I ask everyone to come back on camera for our questions? Because there's lots of wonderful questions coming through and I will direct them. I'm just going to have a little scroll back and get all of these beautiful questions. Please keep your questions coming through in the chat and I will just ask them through as they've come through. So just get it. Sorry, just scrolled through. So lots of thank yous. So that's great. Thank you, everyone. Cool. So we've got from Jim, Kira is an inspiring example for whānau with aspirations to start in business and to ultimately achieve sustainability and growth. Would you do anything differently from what you've experienced so far in business, Blanche?
No. And no, I wouldn't. And I mean, everything that has happened to this point has shaped the decisions we've made, whether they were good, whether they were ugly, whether they were downright hard slavery positions we were in. The pivoting comes as a result of these challenges, and I certainly would not change anything that has happened to date. But yeah, sorry, the great question, but no.
Cool. Now I'm going to give this a go because my Māori is not up, but I'm going to try and read this. Kia ora Blanche, kai mā te whiti, ko whānau o Kai Ora. My one question about not sweating the small stuff. Do you include in your annual reports mātarangi Māori? And if you do, how does this contribute to your financial reports?
Mātauranga Māori? Mātauranga Māori is an integral part of our family's transition into connecting deeper to our te ao Māori culture, our heritage, bridging the gap between our language, barriers that we have not had the privilege to grow up in, not the privilege, but I think the challenges that we were facing in our early years to become independent and successful kind of overclouded focus of being steeped in te reo Māori. So that journey over the last 5 years has been encouraged within my whānau, with anybody who comes into contact with us, that we take that time to learn, even if it's te wiki o te reo Māori, whether it's our opening karakia, our closing, our opening with our whakapapa and learning more. It's not just about us, it's about the generations that are coming up under us, that they connect to the generations before us that we had the privilege of knowing. So how does it reflect in our end of year reports? Well, it doesn't. It reflects in our actions and the way that we communicate and show manaaki to each other and to our extended whanaunga in everything we do. So financially, we can see that it will benefit, but that will take time as we build a global Māori brand, not only for our whānau, but also for our communities that support us.
Fantastic. And I think like anything, it's just taking that first step, isn't it, Blanche? Yes. Getting out there. All right. So another one for you, Blanche, the popular lady. What is next? What is planned next in the business chapter for Kai Ora Honey?
You'll have to wait and see. Oh, look, we've done so much pivoting since 2020, relaunching the Hana skincare range with esteemed, globally recognised formulator Suzanne Hall. Has been an exciting journey. We're only at the beginning of that journey, especially around understanding our native ngahere better and how we can incorporate that into our final products. That is a focus of ours. We will continue to build products that recognise our taonga species, that can protect it not only for Aotearoa but for next generations to come, because the protection around what the capability of our native ngahere is exponential, financially and culturally, and I find it my personal mission to make sure that I am going to protect that for generations to come.
Beautiful. You're beautiful. Lots of beautiful, lots of awesome. So coming through, let's see what's the next question down here. Right. And looking here, Blanche, looking back on your journey so far, if your iwi had unlimited money, don't we all wish we had unlimited money and know-how? How do you think you could have helped? How do you think that could have helped you, or how do you think they would have been able to? How do you think they would be able to help going forward?
I think iwi have an important position, especially in the global business arena going forward. Their investment heavily into the production, into primary production, is a good example of how our capability in innovation, product development and market strategy can be paired quite well with a primary production business that iwi have engaged in. When you look at these types of partnerships, you've really got to look at them on their own merits and what they bring to the table. And for our business, it's not all about money. It's definitely about those, the relationship that allows the information to flow freely back and forth, that we feel safe and secure and happy that what we're doing is a shared journey. So knowing our why and understanding their why. We all know that it's about people. We all know that they've got cultural pillars, environmental pillars that they all must attain to at the end of year annual reports. But as a whānau business, as individuals that work within these contexts of iwi businesses, we must remember that these are real people at the end of the day that have whānau at home, that have that are raising our tamariki in a forever changing, challenging world. So where I think that iwi can definitely shape that space is around curating education that supports small businesses, wahine businesses, the education around how our tamariki can transition and think globally to act globally, because it is possible. We're a perfect example of being in a area of deprivation with lack of infrastructure, but the resilience and the know-how of moving forward. And we had an amazing relationship with the Potama, with Māori businesswoman development. We had Amotai is behind us. All of those businesses that Ben and David had discussed are definitely the relationships that I leaned into, that I leveraged. Even the the connections that I was able to forge with Karleen, and taking the effort to network in the areas that you know are going to benefit not only yourself personally, but also the entire business. So iwi have a long-term strategy, so they obviously have a position within our industry and with businesses like ours where it can be mutually beneficial.
Great, thank you. This will be a bit of you, Blanche, and David and Ben. So what could the bank have done different to help your business, and what did they do really well that may benefit other Māori businesses? So do you want to start, Blanche, and hand to David, and then you can...
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, I can read it again.
Yep.
Or maybe David could start and then you can tap in there after David. What could the bank have done different to help your business? So Blanche, you can look, but what do they do really well that may benefit other Māori businesses? So David, do you want to do a little bit and then Blanche can tap in it after?
Yeah, and I guess maybe instead of focusing specifically on Blanche per se, I guess in general, where we see success is when customers are open and they come to us early, and we have really open dialogue about their plans and what they're hoping to achieve. Once we can kind of form that connection and we can get much deeper conversations, then we can truly think about what their objectives are and what they need to put in place to get there. There's I guess, which is kind of a follow-on point to I saw a question here about David and Ben, what do you think about iwi-backed microfinancing to support tribal SMEs? And I guess that was sort of an earlier question to Blanche about what could your iwi have done? I guess these are ongoing discussions that we do have with our iwi clients around how do you leverage your size and scale as an iwi to help SMEs grow and develop. So we're absolutely interested in all ideas that might enable us to kind of leverage our size and scale to mean that we can help more of the whānau within iwi to be successful. I'm not sure, Blanche, if you had anything to add to that in terms of how or what the bank could have done differently.
Honestly, I must admit that I come from a banking background, so I have a good understanding of financial literacy. But let me tell you, I'm severely dyslexic. I have very poor writing, reading capabilities unless I'm interested in it. So I've been really lucky to forge some pretty awesome relationships with my banking manager, being open and honest about what has been happening on our business journey, because I tell you, it hasn't been only turbulent for us. I'm positive it's been turbulent for others. I'm always quite forthcoming in terms of what possibly may or may not happen. So I've been very lucky in that sense. I understood what my equity position was starting before I even go to a bank. So I understood what my debt to value ratio already was before I even walked in the door, giving over recommendations on how I can get the loan across the board. Again, it comes back to knowing your why, your plan, your execution, your market size, your value size, and how you're going to convert that market and value size into putia that will give back to paying your bills, paying your staff. Believe you me, we have gone to the wallows of the wallows before, and we left it almost too late to go to the bank. So save yourself the anxiety, the pressure, the unnecessary stress, and go early.
Yep. So took all that, Blanche. Absolutely. The earlier the better, and also don't be shy. Like we like to think we're more approachable than perhaps people think we are, but we want to hear from you. We want to form a relationship, and we want to understand what you're trying to achieve.
Thanks, David. Well, I've still got you there, David, and you can probably answer this one. We've got people that all want to move to Ben as their Māori Business Relationship Manager.
Yeah, kia ora. There's a long queue to have a relationship with Ben, but no, absolutely. We want to give customers the right level of service and the right location that works for them. Ben is by no means the only Māori business manager we have. We have other Bens, and Karleen's helping us grow that pipeline. So if you feel you're not getting what you want from your existing relationship, then please drop us an email, maoribusiness@anz.com, and let's have a conversation around what you're trying to achieve, what you're not getting, so we can kind of remedy that.
Great, thank you.
And Ben might be part of that solution.
For sure. Thank you so much, David. Just a quick question around the presentation slides. We don't send the slides, but they're the full recording of today's presentation uploaded within a week on the ANZ website. So you'll be able to see it all there for those that have missed it or those that have left early. You've answered the iwi question. So let's see. The ANZ does have business continuation plans. They're available on our Biz Hub. We do have a webinar around business risk as well. So have a look on our ANZ Biz Hub. There's workshops and a whole lot of free resources if you haven't checked them out, as well as a business plan template, as well as our upcoming business planning workshop on the 5th of May. So the email, we'll drop the email for, I'll get Luna to put the email for ANZ again for the Māori business in the chat for you. That's no problem. Great work on the first webinar. Right. Okay, next question. If someone is looking to grow in terms of operating in other role without franchising, how and where would you recommend looking? Do you want me to start with that, David, or? Yeah, so I guess there's a range of stuff. I mean, franchising in one point, if you haven't been in business, gives you that structure, and there's a little bit more of that support network that David and Ben talked about around your accountants, solicitors, the Māori and business teams out there. It's just looking at it, but we've got the range of workshops available to you. So we are starting with business planning and cash flow, but there is all our other range of ones on risk, digitals, launching, leadership, and all of those there. I guess it's just really coming back to Blanche's point, your why of you going into business, really understand what you're doing it for. Are you trying to make a better life for your whānau, what it is, and then looking at planning backwards. So I always like get your big rock of your business, and then how do you chunk it down into smaller chunks. But definitely, if you like, come and have a talk to one of us at ANZ, and we'll be happy to look to you and help you with the startup package that we have free on our website as well. Anyone else want to add to that? David, Ben, Karleen? No? We'll carry on. Cool.
Well, just quickly on franchising, whether you progress that or not, I guess, as Ben mentioned earlier, it's really just about understanding the key risks and how you're going to mitigate them. most things are a trade-off. So sometimes you trade away risk for a slightly lower return. So it's generally a balance of those things. Kia ora.
Great. Thank you. Next one. I've had a side hustle hobby for 8 years, but struggling to actually take the next step of registering my business. Is there any support to help me to take to the next scary step? I'm in I think it's meant to say Hamilton, and often find more accessible support and grants for those in Auckland. Not sure if there's anything available here in Hamilton. I think, again, look, business is scary. My husband and I had a business for 8 years. We decided to fully go into it when I returned to work with our first child. So I think anything in business, Blanche can tell you, David and Ben, there's an element of risk. I think it's weighing up for yourself, looking at that next step. You know, are you relying on your salary if you're in a salary job? And again, planning that out. Have a look at our startup package on the Business Hub, is really helpful. Does go through those stages and those steps for you. But again, you can talk to any one of us. Our webinars are available throughout New Zealand, so you can jump on anytime if you'd like to have a look there. David, do you want to add anything, or Blanche?
I can, Blanche. I think, you know, when you go to the next step of registering your business, there is lots of good free resources on the government websites, like on MB. You'll also be able to reach out to some of those networks we talked about in terms of TPK, Te Puni Kokiri, but also the regional Māori business networks, where they'll have information they can share around that kind of initial startup phase.
Great. Thank you.
I'm the same. Talk to whānau, talk to friends. The IRD website is actually really fantastic. It's easy to follow. Very good search engine when you be quite specific with your keywords about what you're trying to achieve. So I found that really good. Again, Potama was a great stepping stone around finding that Māori business support. Amotai, I believe, would be another great tool to leverage now to find your local Amotai support person that would be able to help you navigate those questions, and also put you in contact with other businesses that are specifically the gurus. Amotai has all the gurus at hand.
Love it. Thank you. Blanche, while you're up there, what has been your biggest challenge in your journey, and how did you overcome setbacks?
Well, my why is also my biggest challenge, my whānau. But, you know, it's easy to overcome when aroha and manaaki really is the forerunner of the purpose of what you do. So whilst they are well, for me personally, but also as us as a whole, is our focus around how we share out to each other, it's also, important for us to it's healthy to fight. Man, we've had our fair share of the old fist pump has been in there too. So but you know, what happens at mahi stays at mahi, and we still walk across the driveway to our mother's dinner table and have kai together at the end of the day, because it's still whānau. Business is business. Whānau will never go away. So keeping that in perspective, a lot of people find it difficult to let certain things go, but forgiveness and moving forward is a big part of being in a whānau business.
Great, thank you. There's heaps of questions, and we're going to do our best to get through as many as possible within time. So if we don't get to your question, we are working very hard to get through them. Pounamu Trust have been very proud to support you in your business journey. They have one question: Are labour constraints providing you any challenges at the moment, and how are you mitigating this challenge that many other Māori businesses are experiencing?
Well, again, it comes back to whānau. We've been blessed for free labour. No. You can't always rely on free labour, but absolutely, labour constraints are always there. It's the one thing that you've got to think about it every week or every fortnight. It's the cash flow sucker of the day. So absolutely, it's there's a huge constraints around that. One of the things that we experienced through the transition of innovation where a lot of our capital raised was being reinvested back into the supply chain to ensure that our supply chain was solid, it became quite daunting and difficult to manage that cash flow. But what we discovered, in actual fact, that what actually helped us out was when we were bringing on these gurus, we were able to bring them on as contractors so that we could use the funding that is available through the Māori assistance of Pautama, NZTE, as consultants, as advisors, as, so not, you don't always have to look at it as a labour that has to be there every week. Sometimes it can be a short stint contract where you can actually find the putia outside of your normal cash flow to support that. Most of the time it's a 50-50 putia investment, but it's always worth to analyse. If you've got 2,500 towards personal development or training or anything like that, it always is worth putting that effort in to discover who that would be, who's going to support that grant, and who to best invest that particular training into within your circle.
Great. Karleen, I'm going to direct this one at you. At ANZ, do we offer Māori lessons to ANZ staff? Because there's someone that does do lessons.
Oh, kia ora. I absolutely love our whānau. We'll always take an opportunity wherever we can, to get business going. So to our whānau that made that comment, he mihi nui rawa atu kia koe. So part of my role as Kai Ora Honey, Māori, the head of the Te Ao Māori strategy, one was first to develop our very first Te Ao Māori strategy. And the second is about creating legacy and change. That element of Te Reo Māori, of course, e uwana ki te wairua, e uwana ki te rano o te ao te mātauranga o tātou te Māori. And I think that what this does is this brings us across to the opportunities that here at the ANZ. So long answer to the question is we're developing those currently, and you'll see those come through. But always love our whānau reaching out to us like this. Kia ora.
Great. Just one last question. Who is the Māori manager in Rotorua? Just get in touch and tick the form at the end and we can put you in touch with someone in Rotorua for you. Thank you, and sorry for anyone that we missed your questions. If you do still want a question answered, please email it through to us and we will get through to those. I will hand over to Karleen to close off with a mihi.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa. You heard today some inspiring words and just the depth of the kōrero from Blanche, the pure beauty, humility, but the earthliness of her kōrero that I believe speaks of generations upon generations that have come to hear for her and her whānau, for our whānau in Muri Whenua and across the ao. Her inspiration, her maya, her resilience, her ability in which to just give us all the pure oil which she shared with us today. And amongst that, you heard the kōrero from David and Ben. Thinking it from that perspective as our bankers here at the ANZ. I must say I had my own business for 16 years, but I never truly got to understand what it meant from the bank's position. So the opportunity to hear that from both David and Ben today, he nui te aroha. With that, whānau, we've come to the end of this, our very first kia pōwai te Pākehi business webinar. It's the opportunity for you to hear business speakers, Māori business speakers, talk about that pure oil. So I thank everyone for being here today. We hope that this has been, I'll use the word hana, the word that Blanche gave us, that this will be of beauty, of growth, and it glows for you today in support of you in business. Hoinano, we started with a little karakia, a little taku, and I'm going to end with that as well. And I wish you all a great afternoon for the rest of the day. And remember to check on the websites that we've posted up there. Ako mihi nui rawa atu kia koutou. Tākiri rangi, tākiri nuku, tākiri tawa tia kia pūwai ki te ao, te kare āroto e. Tēnā rā koutou katoa, mauri ora.